Hello, everyone. We are live again. A little bit later than originally scheduled, 1:30 on a Tuesday, with another Mentor Links live. I'm John Stacey, as you know, hopefully by now. And I've just clicked on something, so you might have lost me. Bear with me. There we go. I'm back, I think, hopefully. Yep, just press something. Oops. Technical difficulties. Yeah, I'm John Stacey. As you probably know, I'm from MENTalk Links. We're here today with another guest on MENTalk Links Live, another local provider of fantastic mental health stuff, and we'll let him explain that, as well as just being a local guy doing local things. So, as you probably know, if you've caught a few of these before, these are interviews with local campaigners, local champions, people who are local to the area and have been through quite a bit, and also doing great stuff to help other people in the community. I will bring him on soon, but before I do, I've realised after speaking to a couple of people who've been involved in, a couple of people who have watched our previous videos, sometimes we may talk about stuff that can get a little bit deep, so kind of before I do any of these going forward, and this is the first time I'll be doing it, I just want to put out there that these are live, so there's a little bit of a trigger warning for anybody, just in case of anything that might come up. I don't know what might come up, obviously, because I'm interviewing somebody. But obviously, if you are watching and you may relate to some of the experiences and that might trigger something, please just shut the camera off, shut the video off, turn it off, get off the social media, and don't listen to us anymore if it does trigger you. And I do apologize in advance of that, but I really can't judge whether that will happen or not, so I do apologize if that does. Anyway, let's get into it. So I'm going to bring in our guest now. Let's see if this works straight away. Hello, Simon.
Hello, John. How you doing?
Brilliant. Yeah, not bad. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good. I heard your little preface there. I'm glad you said that. It's probably safe.
Yeah. Well, you never know what we're going to say between us two.
I don't know what I'm going to say yet.
But no, I had a little bit of feedback from somebody who watched a while back, and it wasn't anything serious. It's nothing that anybody should feel bad about. But one of our previous chats, I won't say which one, confidentiality and all that, but one of our previous chats just triggered something in someone, and they just said, "Oh, maybe you should do a quick trigger warning." And I kind of listened, and I'm happy to do that. I think it's right to do that if we're doing something live like this. You never know what might happen. So, in the best will possible. We are going to be honest, we're going to be open, we're going to be frank, and if that does trigger somebody, upset somebody, please just turn off. It's absolutely fine to do so. We won't be offended. So Simon, tell us a bit more about yourself. Tell us about kind of you and what you do, and I'll obviously then follow on with how we know each other and talk about that kind of stuff as well.
Sure. Thanks for the intro, John. So I guess I don't know a number of reasons why you could have asked me to join you, and I'm flattered by it, so thanks. But I'd say that, I suppose from my point of view, working backwards, I now live back up here in Lincoln, and I grew up down the road in Newark. And I've spent a few years leading up to this point where I'm now in a position to sort of review my life and review the things that have worked and haven't worked. And to this day and yesterday, I'm still at a point where I'm learning the ropes, so to speak. I think it's fine to own and say that. But in terms of my journey, I grew up in Newark, and I went away to uni, and I worked a few different jobs, tried a few different things, sort of dipped my toe in many waters, not for very long, but I was a little bit of a hopper, finding my way. Then I worked in London, probably 7 years now, I think. And one of the things I struggled with was on the corporate and the work side were a few challenges, and I decided in some weird masochistic way that I would start a business because that would be the answer to my problem. So the idea was to actually have something that I was more in control of. Yeah. And 2.5 years on, it's all going good, and the business is fine, but of course you need a good canvas underneath it sometimes. And sometimes the canvas is a challenge, to be honest, but that's where I am now. So cool. 38-year-old Lincoln resident business owner.
Yeah. Bro. Yeah, so a little bit of context about why I've invited Simon on now. He's introduced himself. Simon's obviously, like I say, a local advocate, I guess, a local champion. I like to call people champions. I think it's really uplifting to call people champions. But anybody that I come across who I think is a local person doing great stuff and putting great content out there is, for me, somebody being championing mental health in the local area. And I come across Simon over over a year ago now, or around a year ago, when I started Mentalk Links. We chatted. We've got very similar sort of, I guess, kind of what we've kind of been through. Kind of, I mean, I've said this before on these lives. Essentially, we've all got different stories, but they all relate in different points, and I think that's where we sort of clicked quite quickly. And I think that the biggest thing that I found really great about Simon was his honesty and how he is very open about doing blogs, doing interviews, doing podcasts, things like that, where he talks about his experiences in mental health, talks about the things that have happened to him, the things that his ups and downs, his roller coaster moments, and ultimately, I think, whether it's good, bad, and ugly that he's talking about, it's quite an inspiring position that he puts himself in, having been quite successful, still being quite successful, but still managing to navigate that, like you talked about in your little intro there. You talked about navigating it and making sure you've got that canvas, that healthy canvas underneath it all. So yeah, I mean, what I would ask first of all, Simon, I guess the first question I always want to ask people, building on what I've said there, what do you think prompted you to start doing that kind of stuff? So writing blogs, getting involved in mental health, talking about mental health in the workplace, because I know some of your work's based on that kind of stuff. Like what made you want to do that?
First of all, personal experience drove it. This wasn't me deciding to be the sound piece of someone else and writing, fluff pieces for people. This was the plot and the story was already inside, if you know what I mean. So I was able to write my thoughts. And secondly, hand in hand with that, I find writing really quite a cathartic process. So I actually really enjoy writing. So I'm actually, to get the angle of I've actually got you on a pile of notebooks, by the way, the phone. I write. I have my work notebook, my mental health notebook, a bit of a to-do list, and I do like to, write my lists, and I've got a lot going on in my head sometimes, and I find canting it essentially into written form helps me. So often when I write, I have an idea that I want to share, and then I start writing it, and then it looks a bit raw and crappy, and then you rearrange it, and it actually looks like someone another human can read outside of yourself. So that. But going back to the original question, the reason I started doing that was because I've been in that position, and I'd had a really big, I guess, mental health, episode, breakdown, whatever word you want to call it, which we'll talk about it further. But that just kind of made me realize that there's a lot to be said for it, and I think there's a lot of taboos. There's a lot of things in the world that are getting better. We're a long way off equity, equality, class division, racial, gender inequality, all these different things. But there's progress being made across the world in these areas. I do feel like mental health has, in relative terms, it's got a bit of a surge in recent years. Some of it's more virtuous signaling than others, but it's still a long way to go, John. And I feel like the more people who could openly talk about it, I feel the better it's going to be for people, because no one wants to write, not everyone wants to share their views, and that's totally fine, and that's their prerogative. But often I found that people came to me and they were almost given confidence by the fact that I'd opened up in the first place. Does that make sense?
That's it. No, I totally get that. I mean, it's one of the main reasons why I started Mentalk Links, and I know that quite a lot of the premises, the sort of like inspiration behind Mentalk Links came from that. But I mean, what I found during my 8.5 years, whatever it is now, of kind of talking more about my mental health and being more engaged in my mental health is quite surprised really how much just talking is quite a big deal. And actually, not just for me, like you say, to decant it out of my mind. That's a lot of the reason why I do it, to get it out of my head, to make it feel less weighty on my shoulders, or whatever you want to call it. But also for other people listening who may not have the strength or the power, or may not even need to talk about it, but may need to listen and hear that someone else is going through similar or whatever. It can be as simple as just, not feeling alone, not feeling isolated because a other person is feeling the same kind of things, because it can feel quite isolating when you feel really low. So no, I totally relate to that. And I think it's kind of beautiful, really. It's kind of a little bit of an art form, a bit creative in a lot of ways that I think people take away. People box creativity into like, the arts, so to speak, the traditional arts. The traditional artistic roles. And it's like, you know what? Creativity is everywhere. And actually creativity could just be formulating what's in your mind somehow and putting it out there.
You're right. It's about expression and the ability to express yourself in any way you wish. And some people don't want to express themselves, and some people can and do. But going back to your point, you don't do it for, I'm not doing it for any reason other than the fact, selfishly, it makes me feel better getting offloading stuff. That's the only benefit to me. But I know it's helping others doing it. I have a business for other more selfish means, to actually grow an enterprise and try and pay the bills. But in terms of the mental health thing, this is something that I'm living and breathing every day. And you can't just position it as, there's a lot of survivorship bias. If you look on LinkedIn and all these different things, it's always like, I had, no money, no family, no body, no head, no mind. And then all of a sudden I'm a multi-millionaire selling Teslas. Ridiculous clickbaity stories. But the reality is it's not always bad, then good. I think it's sometimes bad, then good, then bad. And I think it's important to actually own the fact that it's not always beer and Skittles, as my dad would say.
No, that's perfect. I love that. And the roller coaster. I mean, I talk about the roller coaster all the time. I'd really like it to be less of a roller coaster and just less of and more of a normal journey, because and one of the things I do when I talk about this in the session that we run, essentially there is no pinnacle. You shouldn't have to look at an absolute and be like, I want to be right the other end of the I want to be the happiest person in the world, because that is actually quite a negative place. There's only one way that goes, and that's down.
Is that when you talk to me about toxic positivity, John? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, it's basically a case of like, positivity is. This is midday, so I can't swear, but it's rubbish. It doesn't mean anything. Positivity is not something that people should strive for, or should follow, or should listen to and go, oh yeah, I'm happy now because I've listened to that positive message. Positivity should actually be born in contentment, in acceptance, in the acknowledgement that we're not. We have ups and downs. We have those movements. We are all over the place. We are human. We're not infallible. We're not invincible. We will have things that can happen to us. We can put all the protections in place. We can put all the shields up, all of our suits of armor, all of our weapons in place to try and stop bad things happening or negative emotions coming. We'll never beat it. It's a part of life. It's a spectrum. It's a world that we live in. It's the earth. It's whatever you want to call it. And we all just need to sit there. The strength and contentment comes from sitting there and going, this is going to happen. And actually what you find when you get there, the first step of acknowledging it is actually a little bit of peace. That when it does happen, it's not the end of the world, because that you felt happy before, you can feel happy again. It's like, right. I completely agree with you with those virtue signaling kind of LinkedIn-y kind of style things where it's like, let's aim for the top of the mountain. It's like, then what? Do you know what I mean? Like I don't really.
It's very true, and there's so much around that sort of inconsistency, and it's exhausting, isn't it? And that's why I think it's better to come from a genuine place where you've been through it and talk.
That's it, and I think that's really great, and leads me really nicely onto the next thing that I wanted to talk to you about. So one of the reasons why I think that me and you connected really quickly, and the reason why I wanted to be more involved with you and kind of get you involved with the MENTalk stuff, is the fact that a massive part of what I feel is important with doing the work is community, connectivity, relatability between people. And I think what I found with you is someone who, forgive me for saying this if this is offensive, I don't think it is offensive, but someone who I think has kind of been involved in
words, go for it.
Someone who's been involved in a lot of different walks of life, has a lot of different experiences, but can relate to lots of different people due to the nature of your personality generally, but also due to the work that you've done and things like that. Like, sociably, I guess, if you want to call it sociably, which is a bit of a weird way of describing it, you can connect to people quite well in your words and the way you talk to people and all that kind of thing. And I just think, do you know what? We need more people, honest, open, people about the struggles that we've been through that can connect to every single different kind of person. I think that's really important.
Well, thank you, John. That was definitely not an insult. But going back to your point, actually, think about happiness a minute. You talked about happiness and contentment. That was what I was going to say, and I almost forgot it. I think a lot of people, there's a lot of messages out there about what happiness is, what happiness looks like, pictures of smiling families on the beach on holiday. They don't have a picture of someone stepping in the dog poo down before, or I think at the end of the day, there's a difference between happiness and pleasure.
Yeah.
I think pleasure is often marketed as happiness and vice versa. And I think, a lot of the traditional marketing mediums and advertising industry, which is, I'm part of, to be honest, is unsure of that traditional mind sort of play down the years is partly responsible for that. If you clean your teeth, you have better teeth, and then everyone loves you. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I think if you debunk a lot of that and actually realise that a lot of work is just to help people sell products, and you get back to the basics of, if you're feeling a bit low, it's a Sunday night, you've got this Monday feeling, it's raining outside, you feel fat after having afters for your roast dinner. Is it really that bad? Actually, you're happy because you're around your family, you're full, your heart's full. You might not feel overly happy, or you might feel a bit gutted that you're going back to work tomorrow, but that can still be happiness. Happiness is walking around with an inane grin on your face 24/7.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's a thing that that I read about, because I'm massively into comic books. I'm a bit of a comic book nerd, and there was this thing that somebody wrote. It was like a fan fiction-y kind of like hypothesis around the Joker. And obviously there's been lots of films about the Joker and the Batman kind of storyline and stuff like that. And obviously the most recent film is about Joker basically being, a mentally ill person. Actually, this thing that I read that was like a fan fiction-y kind of thing was talking about the Joker character was basically driven from an idea that happiness is fake, and that smile, that permanent smile that he has on his mouth is kind of a representation of what you shouldn't look like. You shouldn't be happy all the time. You shouldn't be smiling all the time, because look what happens. This is what you become if you're smiling all the time. And it was driven towards madness, and that, striving for happiness will send you mad. Ultimately, the Joker's character across all of his storylines is constantly trying to be happy by ruining Batman's life, right? And it's a very selfish life he leads. It's not very content. It's kind of pushing towards one goal all the time. It has all of these traits that we've just been talking about with regards to toxic positivity, in a sense of like, he's constantly trying to smile. He's constantly smiling. Actually, what he needed to do was actually relax and just be like, this is life. Like, actually, sometimes I'm not going to smile. Sometimes I'm going to be unhappy.
They're like getting fired, and then there's all the guys with the clown like facial face paint on there, isn't there? And they're all kicked out, and it's all kicking off at the beginning. I remember watching the one with Joaquin Phoenix. Brilliant film.
Yeah, great film.
And when I watched it, I thought that it's that juxtaposition, isn't it, of the facial smile and the real unhappiness and terror underneath, really.
Yeah, and there's a lot of sort of undertones and connotations with comic book characters. Like there's the Jesus complex with Superman. A lot of people say that Superman was designed to be like Jesus, the second coming, and all this kind of thing. But the Joker story I really aligned to with regards to mental health, because around my own perception, judging by what we've just been talking about, it was that the Joker was designed to sort of try and tell people subtly that you shouldn't be striving for this happiness. You should actually be accepting that life isn't always happy, and that it does lead to a lot of pain to try and do that. So I think that's completely relevant to discuss, really. They've got a couple of comments. Stuart's here saying we look really nice. He said incredibly sexy.
I saw Stuart's last week, and it was really good. And I thought I've got stuff I could follow. So
he did a good job. Fran's here saying she loves a to-do list, because you were saying about your lists and your notebooks. She's saying she loves to-do lists. Caroline, positivity as a concept is damaging and holds people in shame, fear, and darkness. Absolutely, yeah, agree with that. Acceptance of self and others for me was life-changing. We could aspire for acceptance rather than happiness. Yeah, I mean, you don't even need, in my eyes, you don't even need to aspire for acceptance. Acceptance is something that's already there. We're getting steered away from acceptance a lot because of the fact that we have this culture, like you alluded to, with regards to advertising, with regards to media that's out there, where we shouldn't accept what we have. We shouldn't accept who we are. We should strive to be something different all the time. And actually, being you is absolutely fine. And if you want to improve, it should be based on improvements or development that you think you need to do to improve yourself generally. Nothing to do with not accepting yourself. It should be beyond the acceptance. It should be growth.
But we talk acceptance as well, John. It's kind of like, what parameters are you measuring yourself by? By you or others? And that's the key, right?
Yeah.
Happiness and I guess improved mental health comes from trying to be better than the day before.
Yeah.
So, for example, some days I might be disappointed that I haven't knocked out 2 massive bits of good work for a client because compared to the previous day, I was on fire.
Yeah.
Whereas another day, the fact to go out of bed before 9 a.m., I'm high-fiving myself because in reality, crap the day before.
Yeah.
But the point being is that we're on a skirt. We oscillate a lot. I do. I've had my ups and downs, and you've just got to be the best version of yourself you can be given the circumstances. And I think it's unrealistic to strive for more without the idea that you're not going to have setbacks. And comparing yourself to others is a fool's errand anyway, because there's only, you can only be you. There's only one you, so be you,
Yeah, I mean, I love that. And I think, just sort of going back to the kind of metric behind it, obviously we talk about it at MENTalk when we do the sessions, and we say, right, first of all, you've got to be aware, you've got to be self-aware. Then the next step is self-acceptance. And then after that is growth. And the reason we put them in that order is when you are self-accepting, you can grow. If you're striving to grow or be better without even accepting yourself in the first place, it is only going to lead to unhappiness, like you just alluded to, because you're comparing yourself to somebody else. You can't really grow unless you know more about you than anything else, unless you're very accepting of who you are. You can't really be better at something unless you know what you're being better against within yourself. It is that self-acceptance. It isn't looking at another person on a screen and going, I need to be like that person. That is what I need to do, because you're not even really accepting yourself. You're not aware of who you are. You're not aware of what you're capable of. Therefore, it is going to be a failed effort, and you won't necessarily get what you're trying to get out of it. So it's a really strong message, and thank you for that. One thing I wanted to ask you though, mate, is regarding kind of your, I guess, the stuff that you have done over the last couple of years, the blogs you've written, the interviews you've had, things like that. Would you like to tell us about your favorite thing you've done, or favorite thing you've been part of, and why you did it, and what it was, and kind of what it was about? Anything like that? A bit more detail? I could pick. I have a favourite, but I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna take your moment.
No, you go. Go on.
Well, I obviously like the blog post that we've got on our website, the one that you did, kind of, that I guess kind of was one of the original things you might have done.
Self-employment one.
Yeah.
I wasn't just saying that, but I also did something similar for Sure Mind, the mental health charity for schools, and just great charity, by the way. Check them out. I did one for them last year's World Mental Health Day, and I was proud of that, and that sort of played nicely into what I did with you as well. And I think the reason I'm pleased with that is because I hadn't seen much out there like that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of narrative about business success and self-employment success. There's a lot of narrative about employee mental health. But if you cross-reference it and look for business owner or self-employment mental health, it's limited.
Yeah.
That's something that I wanted to sort of really land, I guess.
Was that is that born out of like a weakness thing? So like that, I guess, kind of self-employed people running their own business, they don't want to seem weak because it could ruin their business, like that kind of thing, do you think? Or where'd that come from?
I mean, every single business owner has their own challenges. If you're selling products, you have a lot of work to do to sell units on an e-commerce site, but you don't necessarily have to put on a smiley face that day when you're raising an invoice or setting up direct debits. Whereas if you're a service business, which I do consulting and planning and strategy for clients for marketing. I kind of have to have that. So it's hard sometimes. And I talk about the canvas, I want a clean canvas underneath. I can, whatever I paint on that canvas that day is actually going to make sense,
Yeah.
And I think that's where every person's challenge is different, where they're coming from, their own mental health, their own business. And if you can, as you put it, mental health challenges with your own business, it's a very unique challenge. And I think that's where I was coming from with that. You got to kind of keep things up.
Yeah. But I think the reason I really liked it, because I've not really run my own business until MENTalk Links, really, but I've also kind of not, I've got quite a limited experience of kind of workplace mental health, and that's kind of the reason why I started MENTalk Links, was to improve that across the county. But one of the reasons. But the reason that I kind of resonated with the article really was the fact that, well, I guess really the first thing is the authenticity of it. It's from your experience, and I kind of felt that all the way through. It was kind of like very story led, very journey led, but also you could. I got a lot from the fact that you were filling that hole, and I found that you were filling that hole without even being in that hole, if that makes sense. So, it sounded vulnerable, but in a very powerful way, like in a sense of like, I guess, kind of giving people an insight into what that gap is, but also kind of it being the same everywhere else without sounding negative about it.
I think I know what you mean. It's kind of owning the weakness that are often known, and then at least trying to show how you get over it. Now, that's not me saying, advice, this is what you should do. This is, I guess, my answer, my solution to my problem. So, and hopefully that will resonate with some people who think, I've had a similar problem, so maybe I can adopt a similar solution. But, with everyone's, and you know this yourself, John, with all the speakeasies you facilitate, every single human is their own Rubik's Cube of, the complexity and what works for one, what doesn't work for all. And I guess, I just wanted to sort of showcase my solutions to my problems, hoping that, I can preach that because I lived it, but I'm in no position to preach to anyone how they should do it, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, it makes perfect sense. And I think that the gap that I would try and suggest that it does without realizing and does without meaning is it bridges a gap where you are using your experience to be an expert to support without realizing that you're doing it because you don't know the people who are connecting to that. So, and that's again a mantra that we live by with Mental
really
Links.
Nice to hear. On a personal note, it's nice to hear. Thanks, John.
No, it is. I mean, everybody is. Not to devalue yours because it's a great article, but anybody who talks about their mental health, anybody who writes about their mental health, anybody who is open and honest enough is immediately an expert by their experience. They've been through what they've been through. They could wax lyrical if they had the power and the strength to do it about anything they've been through. I mean, let's forget mental health for a minute. If you had a really great time at, like, say, a football game or something, the psychology and the science there is that you retain a lot of those memories because of how positive they were. So you will be able to describe that vividly, that experience. You'll be able to describe Christmas, for example, Christmas Day or whatever, if you had a really great day in your past or whatever. Whereas a lot of the time, I guess, again, culture, but also science and psychology teaches us that if we have a really bad time, we forget about it, we block it out, we chuck it away. And I think there's a lot of power in being able to go, no, I'm going to access this memory that was shit. And I'm going to talk about people, excuse my French, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'm going to access that memory.
You, not me.
Exactly. And then I'm going to access it and I'm going to put it out there and I'm going to tell people that this is how I got through it, or this is what I felt during it. And this is how they can perhaps do the same if they've been through the same. And what that adds is an option. It adds a weapon. It adds a potential thing that they can do that if they went to see a GP or if they went to see a psychologist or if they talk to their nan, they're not going to necessarily get that from them because they haven't experienced the same as them. So it's a nice mix. It's a nice bridge. And that's what it's about.
Because I've tried meditation for years. Some people can meditate, some people can't. I can't do it. I've got a lot going on in my head. I'm speaking to, I guess, health services about potential understanding what's going on neurologically with me because my head's like a 747 sometimes. It doesn't switch off, like the turbine is going. But so I try meditation and I struggle with it. But one of the tenets of mindfulness meditation is this idea of observing the moment, right? And you're absolutely right about, I totally agree. I've chatted to the rest of the day. Good, you remember it, the smell of the Christmas needles and more wine and, chocolate, whatever, new aftershave. When it's bad days, it's all a blur. You don't taste the food you eat. You feel this anxiety. Everything's white a little bit. What I try and do is remember those feelings. Like, when I was talking about one before, I was talking about when I had a big burnout in a big agency. I think it's 2018. I had my big, burnout, and my anxiety and depression was diagnosed. I remember being really mindful at that point. Maybe it was an accident, I don't know, but I remember feeling. I looked around at the walls, and I noted my breathing was out of control, and I noticed that my hands were like clammy and cold. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you had that experience.
Moments help you remember that.
Yeah. So
get out of it.
So what? It's like extremes, isn't it? It's like the extreme situations that you're in, and it can be easier to remember the extremes. But I think what I'm getting from what you're saying, and certainly what I try and tell people, is we need to be more present where we can remember more aspects of the things we're in with regard to the extremes and the non-extremes. So, there's a lot of comfortable situations we get ourselves in that are uncomfortable, as in, an argument with your wife or whatever. And that might happen regularly, and it might not affect you emotionally because you're just used to arguing all the time. But we're not present in them moments. We've turned our mind off because we're used to it, and because we just think it's going to go away or whatever, or we compartmentalize it for whatever reason. If you're more present in that moment, and this is something I've worked on, so again, I'm talking from my experience now. If you're more present in them moments, or even if you can reflect quite quickly into them moments, if you weren't present originally, you can reflect back on it. You can learn from them quickly, and you can make amends and repair things or change things or adapt things and grow quicker. And that goes right back to what we were saying about being more aware and being more accepting. Sorry, get my fingers in the shot. Being more aware, being more accepting. Because if you are aware that it's happening, self-aware, if you are accepting that it is going to happen, it's not necessarily your fault, it's not necessarily their fault, it's not necessarily anything, it's just the human nature, then you will be able to access what's happening. You'll be able to know what's happening. You'll be able to feel, like you say, all the different intricacies about it. Therefore, remember it. Therefore, make yourself better and move away from those feelings happening again. Because let's be honest, if it's a regular occurrence of a negative thing, so it's a low-level negative thing that happens all the time, nobody really wants to experience that all the time, do they? Like, you would love to sort of move away from them. Let's be honest. So yeah, I just love that. I think it's a really good example, like, you know, of noticing the extremes and being able to remember the extremes, but not necessarily being able to move on from them without support. So it's kind of like, yeah, if we can try to be more present, more, doesn't matter how you do it. Meditation's great, don't get me wrong. I'm the same as you. I really struggle to find the opportunity to do this, but it's a case of finding your own ways and doing it that suits. So I talk about a way that I meditate when I brush my teeth. So I basically use my nighttime brushing my teeth, and sometimes, not all the time, I stare at myself in the mirror and just zone out a bit and reflect on the day. Nothing else will be going on. So much so, I'm switched off from the rest of the world, and I'm so much in my zone meditating that the other day my wife walked in and scared the hell out of me because I didn't even know she was there. So I jumped out of my skin. I was like, "What are you doing?" Like, oh my God. I literally thought someone was creeping up on me. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's just finding the best ways to do it.
I think it's good to sometimes get in that transcendent space where you're just removed out of your own head, because I think we get caught up in our own head sometimes. Like this morning, I'm working from home today because I had a delivery and I was, I'm getting on here with you, so I wasn't in the office. But I woke up and I felt a bit groggy because I've had a bit of this
the cold thing
going around. But I woke up and I just went for a walk around the block and back just to do breathing. I didn't just for literally 5 minutes to just walk around, breathe in, breathe out, walked around for 5 minutes. And it just kind of recentered me a bit, because sometimes I hate the whole schlep of, you go from your bed to your shower to your laptop,
Yeah. It's not great. I mean, I like the breathing app on your Apple Watch. If anyone's got an Apple Watch, I like that breathe app sometimes just to get the breathing sort of exercises.
I'm not cool like you, John.
I thought you had an Apple Watch. No,
I thought I'd have one. Nah, I've been off the Fitbit from someone. I'm not. I don't know if it feels like I've got to be. I don't know. I'm not into it.
You're monitored all the time.
I'm going to be monitored. I won't like the results.
My Apple Watch allows me to screen things. So when things come in, I look at it and I go, I'm not bothered about dealing with that. I'm just going to leave it for a minute.
I see people at their. I've got a Casio from the 80s.
Nice Casio. You could use that. Big Man Beards just left a nice comment. We are really enjoying this. Thank you both. We love the self-reflection side to all this. It's important we all put our experiences into context at times, as we could spend more time trying to be the version of us we want everyone else to think of us as, than actually enjoying the moments and just being ourselves. 100%. Yeah, I mean, brilliant. When you're out there, you put the mask on, you're doing it for someone else. You're not always doing it for your own protection. You're doing it for someone else, but actually you get to zone in more on enjoying the moments. I have found it so rewarding to just try and be there more in those moments, because you just sink it in, you get it sort of really sort of like what's the best way, you drink it in a lot better. It kind of sits with you more when you're in the moment. Like
puns, don't you? You take the moment in,
rather than just fleeting moments that you forget the next day or whatever. Caroline's echoed the breathing app. The breathe, it's like, I think it's called Breathe on your Apple Watch, but basically you can set it up to automatically remind you to do the breathing exercise like every hour or 2 hours or something. I turned that off a while ago and I just use it ad hoc, but it basically just gets you to breathe in 6 and out 6 or something for about a minute. It just sort of slows your breathing, and obviously that's really good for like settling your mind a little bit.
I think it's Headspace or something I downloaded.
Yeah, Headspace has got one on there, I think. Yeah, Headspace.
A circle that contracts.
Yeah. That's similar to the Breathe app. Yeah. But I love that kind of stuff. And I think everybody's just got to find stuff that suits them, really. But you do need to try stuff like the mindfulness techniques around that, because we probably do a lot of it subconsciously. This is something I pointed out with one of the myth busting videos I've got out on the website. meditation and kind of mindfulness, we actually do a lot of subconscious meditation. So
You're right.
a subconscious version of meditation is watching a shit program on TV. God, I've sworn again. It's you, Simon. You're bringing out the swearing.
Nonsense.
Yeah, but basically, if you're zoning out on TV and you're watching a really rubbish program, like, I don't know, like Love Island or something, you're really into Love Island, you're zoning out. Your brain is turned off. You're not anxious. You're not worried about the next day, all that kind of stuff. That is meditation, but it's subconscious meditation.
Cinema is one of the few places in the world where I can go and watch a film and switch off.
Yeah,
like, I know the smell, the smell of popcorn and, the
I love the cinema.
And you're just listening and the loud. I love it. It's so immersive and it really takes me out of my own.
No, I love it. I get it. I get that completely. I think the big thing for me, though, is the conscious side of things. So I really like to find ways to stop doing the subconscious. So for me, subconscious is like that unhealthy self-care, which is in balance really good. But the conscious mindfulness is where you really take time to sort of have that sort of, the breathing exercises, a bit of yoga, meditation, whatever it is, where you get the same zone out, but you get the after effects as well, and that's the difference. So you go to cinema, you watch a great film, you're zoned out for the time you're in there, but as soon as you come out, arguably you're back anxious again, you're back worried or whatever, or you're back sort of low because you're at, it's almost like a bad mood because it's finished. Do you know what I mean?
I've got a real good example of that, like in terms of literally yesterday versus 2 years ago. So when I was working before in a big corporate back in London, I was doing my thing and I'd feel totally worn out and wiped out at my wit's end, stressed, tired, and I'd be like, why isn't this working? Why can't the words come out? Why am I messing this up? Whatever. Because we need tiny mistakes. Now, the difference was that last night I had a similar mental feeling of like overwhelmness, fatigue, balls that up a little bit. But then I thought to myself, hang on, to be fair to me, it is Monday evening. I'm recovering from a cold. I've done a lot of good stuff today. Actually, in that realm, it's actually okay. So sometimes being able to actually reflect positively as well.
Yeah, positive reflection is really great. Gratitude's really great.
I'm actually proud of that for me. That's a growth for me because 3 years ago, I wasn't able to do that. I was like, oh, it's crap, whatever.
I'll give you a clap.
But now it's like, oh, okay, this isn't good. But to be fair, there is that. And I'm not making excuses. It's more about understanding the landscape that's creating that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's that awareness, isn't it? It's the acceptance that these things happen and this is why. And, obviously men, and I don't mean to generalize because women are the same in certain parts, but men are probably quite generalized in a sense of being quite analytical towards what they do. So what I try and say is to men when I'm working with men is analyze your moods, analyze your emotions. Why are you feeling this way? And that's what you did. That's all you did. You analyzed it, what it was. And then you actually turned around and went, but there's lots of other things here as well. And it's like adding those buts in a positive way, because what we often do is we go, right, so this is the way things are, but it's going to be worse, but it's going to be worse, but it's going to be worse. And it's like, I was talking to someone the other day and I was like, you need to change your buts into positive buts, like reasons why things are great, like gratitude, right? And in the same breath, this guy that I was talking to, this is something a little bit off piece, but kind of linked to what we're saying. This guy was very much somebody who lumbers himself. So he's somebody who like literally just puts himself in positions because he thinks he has to or he should do. And he kept saying, I should do this though, but I should be this, but I should be this way. Yeah. I said, why do you keep saying should? I'm going to outlaw should. For the next few weeks, you've got to not say should. Every time you say should, ask the question can or could instead, and see how your mindset changes. Because everything he was saying to me, like I should be there for that person. Why? Who said that? You could be there for that person if you want to, but you don't have to. Where's the ruling? Where's the law?
Should's almost like it's someone else's decision, but actually could means you've got a choice. It's your decision.
Yeah, choice. It's all about choice, and I think could is so much better. I wish I could outlaw the word should. It's quite a harsh one. Sorry. you should do that. Yeah,
do that.
Right. I won't keep you any longer, but one more question before we go, Simon. What would you say is your biggest bit of advice that you can give someone having been through everything you've been through? One nugget of info. I'm sure you've been asked this before, but one nugget of advice you'd give someone.
It's a simple line, and it's something that's been said to me for years, and I always ignored it. But actually, now I embrace it, and actually, I'm better for it. And it's simply don't beat yourself up, because I think we are our own hardest critic. I am so hard on myself, John. Like, I have a bit of a bad day. Other people might think, oh, you were fine. Like, I come out of a meeting, I'm like, oh, no, I ballsed it up. And they're like, no, it was great. You were fine. It's a good pitch. I'm like, no. Then I overanalyze the things I didn't do. Whereas everyone's like, oh, no, you did do. We're much harder on ourselves than others.
Yeah.
No one else is as hard on you. Yeah, you might have challenges in your life where people are hard on you for different reasons. And that's a separate situation to discuss, I'm sure, by person. But generally, we are harder people on ourselves than others. And the moment I read somewhere, treat yourself like you treat others.
Yeah.
Kind of, because it's like be kind to others. Great, you know. But why don't you talk to yourself the way you talk to others? So I'd say don't beat yourself up and be a bit nicer to yourself.
Yeah, I'm the same. I've learned that over the years, and I've learned a bit of a distinguishing. So when I first heard that kind of like, you know, ethos about being nice to yourself, I took that as like, well, I can't. I'm not allowed because it's arrogant to be nice to myself. It's you know, it's a guilt thing, like, you know, taking a bit of time for myself or patting myself on the back, just being arrogant and big-headed. But actually, you know, there's times and place where it's not relevant and not appropriate to do that. And that's when it's arrogant. That's when it's too much. That's when it's actually just almost glossing over something that's not really there. What I have started to balance out or find that sort of middle ground is exactly what you've said. And I still don't do it well. You know, somebody said to me the other day, some really great feedback from something I did. And, you know, I find it really difficult to just accept thanks sometimes, you know, accept that sort of goodwill. And you know this from our relationship, but I just find it really difficult to just go, yeah, you're right. I did do well there, you know.
That balancing thing is spot on, John.
Yeah.
Because, like,
balance is everything.
It's one of my Stoic books I've read. I read a lot of them.
You know, the Stoics are ace. They're sort of
right. And one of them was about, like, being hard on yourself and tolerant of others, whatever. But another thing was kind of, when you get successes or plaudits, don't let it go. You know, sort of talk yourself down off the high ledge, like you know, the arrogant thing. You're absolutely right. Like, temper it and go, right, yeah, it was good, but you know, this can be all changed tomorrow, and be pragmatic about it, and know that the great spiky moments don't last forever. But at the same time, if you have a low and you're beating yourself up about a million things, then go easy on yourself and go, no, you're not, it's fine. So actually, you can temper those two extremes better if you kind of know how to use it.
Yeah, or if you're more aware.
It's not easy, but I would say the starting point is stop beating yourself up.
Yeah, and I think if you can definitely do it more, if you're more aware and you're more accepting, like we've been talking about for the last 40 minutes or so, if you're more aware of what's going on, you're more accepting of the fact that this is going to happen, you can definitely start to turn that monologue back onto yourself a little bit. You know, that mantra of being good to people. You know, the famous phrase is, oh, treat people how you want to be treated. But like, often that perception of what we want to be treated like, we're not even treating ourselves like that already. So,
and I'm
really,
also, you know, we're talking about a couple of, you know, the guys here, me and you, blokes in the mid-30s, whatever. But I'm thinking, you know, I mentor some young people, you know, people of colour, and you know, a couple of like young women coming through in the industry, and you know, they've got their own challenges. You know, voices, they feel like underrepresented in certain areas.
Yeah.
I say that to them as well. It's kind of like the narrative in your head. Like, for example, women are often, they have a loss of confidence to go into certain jobs because they think, oh, what's no point? I'm not going to get it anyway, because they talk themselves out of it, whereas men talk themselves into it. And so, like, whoever you are, you can guarantee there is a certain element of different people who are beating themselves up from some narrative that's elsewhere. But the control starts and begins with you inside in your own head. You're the one who has to force the issue. No one else can for you.
And you've got a choice, haven't you? Like we keep saying, you've got a choice there. You can let the narrative let the narrative lead you, or you can say, no, you know what, that isn't what I'm going to go with. You know, so no, I love it. This has been a really great chat, Simon. I'm hoping that a lot of people will get a lot from it from a watch back point of view. But thank you for everybody who's popped along and been through and dropped the comments in. And thank you for your time, mate. Yeah, and anybody else who has any questions for us, as always, drop it in the comments, get in touch, go on the website, fill out a form and chat to us more. And yeah, thank you very much for your time, and we'll leave it there, mate. Take care, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Cheers,
everyone.
mate. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.